Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the 3DO Experience, the 3DO retrospective podcast where we talk about all things 3DO, the 3DO company, the console, and everything in between. I am Bill, and this is Threk. How you doing, Threk?
Oh, I'm doing great, Bill. I have been unshackled from the workflow, at least for the time being. So I've had a lot of time to laze around and not do a fucking thing. And it is nice. So I'm doing all right, but how are you doing, Bill? There's some sad news on your side of
Yeah,
the
I've
aisle.
been our the last 5 or so days have been pretty rough. My sister Alex, she lost her cat, and the cat was only 7 years old, which is like way too young for a cat. Yeah, it was a rough day overall. She's getting better, but she's still it's gonna take some time for her to get over, like finally heal from it.
Yeah, what did the cat have, like, medical complications, or was it just some kind of accident?
So it had a heart murmur, and it was
Ah,
just
okay.
one of those things that like that they she was giving it medicine, so like she was doing basically all she could for it. Unfortunately, it had a blood clot that went into its spine and it paralyzed it from like the waist down, basically, so it couldn't use its
Mhm.
rear legs or tail anymore. And
Oh man.
it was kind of one of those things where it was like they could have kept it alive, but it would have had to live in a crate, and that would have just been awful for the cat. So we had to put it down, fortunately.
Damn, that's rough. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Shout out to Alex. My thoughts and prayers are with you.
yeah, she's doing better. We went to a cat rescue over the weekend, and I think she went today actually at the time of this recording to go see another cat that she's going to adopt. So hopefully
That's
that
good.
works out.
Yeah, I hope that works out. Yeah, because our last cat, he passed away. It's been a few years now. So, and yeah, I remember a long time ago, my favorite of the cats that we've had. I was here when he passed away, and ooh, that was a rough day. That was a very rough day.
Yeah, I finally like the older you get, the more you realize pets are family in like a deep kind of way like that. So like
Oh,
when
for
one of
sure.
them when one of them passes away, it hurts. That was a rough like way to end the week, and still not really over it. But the best thing to do is just continue on. So
Oh yeah, always take time to grieve. You know, for all of our listeners as well, when this kind of stuff happens, like always take the time to grieve because you need to. Because the only way you can truly move on and be able to like still enjoy life essentially is to let the natural course of losing someone that you care about, just kind of letting that go through. Like just take the time. Don't internalize any of that stuff. It just makes it harder. Like I've known people who say like they lost a parent or somebody and they never truly got over it, and you can tell. And I'll even say you have to like, get over it, you know what I mean? But at least be able to accept it, you know, to a certain
yeah,
degree.
I'll say like because we did post a few like little tributes online, and the amount of support I saw from like not just people we knew, but also like everyone in the podcast community was very nice. That really kind of lifted my spirit a bit because it really shows that the connections you make do matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Despite us all knowing each other through screens and walls of text, there's still some weird form of human connection
Oh yeah,
in this internet scape, you know.
yeah. It's an unfortunate thing, but the best thing we can do is move on and keep on trucking, as they say.
Exactly.
I was watching the NASCAR race this weekend. I felt for your mom there, but at the same time, I was in a bit of a rock and a hard place because my mom's favorite driver is Chase Elliott. So
Yeah.
I was kind of like, sorry, Threk. I got to vote
Yeah.
for my mom's driver here.
It's fine. Like
You know?
I feel bad for Brad because if for those of you who don't know, my mom's driver is Brad Kozlowski. And he started out like pretty well. Like he was racing super well, just a lot of like bad luck and getting caught in like rough accidents was what's kind of screwing him over. And it feels like since then, like whatever momentum he has, it's like he's kind of lost it.
The Fords
Like it.
just suck this year. That's the big thing.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I think some of that stuff just took the wind out of his sails, which is a shame because he hasn't won a race in what, like 2 years,
3. Ever since he
3
started his
years.
own, he joined Roush and started basically became a team owner.
Yeah, yeah. So who knows? Maybe he'll get there, but
And maybe Ford will
is
get
what
their shit together.
we can't guarantee that now, can we?
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, not much has been going on. I got back into reading American comics again, so that's been interesting.
Despite having all this free time to myself where I could actually sit here and read the entirety of this guy,
Mhm.
I still haven't, which is a crime on me. So, in fact, maybe after this, when we're done, I'll probably just take the bookmark out and start from the beginning and just blaze through it. Because yeah, for audio listeners, it's Vagabond, the Viz Big Volume 1, so it's like the first 3 volumes of it. So, the little bit I read is very good.
I love that that's the same guy that did Slam Dunk.
Yeah, I know. And I read the first volume of Slam Dunk, and it definitely has me in a where is this going to go?
Yeah,
Because it ends with like he's like so desperate to join the basketball team, and then he's like in the tryouts, and like the main guy's giving him shit, and so he's just like, "Fuck this, I'm leaving."
yeah,
And
it's an interesting one.
yeah, it ends on like a interesting. Where's this gonna go? So
Yeah, but so for our topic for this episode, we're trying something a little different here. The game that we're covering for the first half of the episode, there's not a whole lot to say about it. It's honestly more the story behind it's more interesting than the game. So we decided, but beside rather than just covering that, we're actually going to do a little kind of like experiment here where we're going to cover two games in one episode.
that are
Um,
completely unrelated.
exactly. I forgot to grab my copy of the game, but
I do not
it,
have a copy of this game, at least the game for the second half. I was planning to do it, but I just didn't get around to it.
yeah. So the games we're covering for this episode are 3DO Doom and Family Feud. Um, we're, we're,
Exactly.
we're taking a bit of a GNC logic here when we do our like anime swaps where we compare two things that have nothing to do with each other just for the hell of it. So
Sure.
for a little comparison. So Doom is one of the most interesting games on 3DO, not because it's good, just because it is a dumpster fire um, in almost every way. And the story behind it is honestly the most interesting part about it. And I, in my, this week, I was doing a bit of refreshing for this episode, and I learned a lot more about this game than I previously did. And the fact that the story is a lot deeper and certain individuals from the story I found out are world class pieces of shit. So yeah, there's gonna be a trigger warning later for people, but
Oh, that bad?
oh yeah, yeah, it is really bad. Kind of
Oh,
ruins my favorite part of this game. So
oh God.
we'll be getting to that, but yeah. So everybody knows the 3DO comes out. We've covered it in the past. It's not doing great, and they're kind of desperate for some killer apps. Another game that comes out around this time is Doom for the Jaguar. And Doom for the Jaguar was pretty significant because it was the lone port of Doom that id Software actually made themselves. And by making this port, they basically just opened the floodgates for licensing for Doom ports on pretty much everything at the time.
Is the only reason they did the Jaguar version was because Atari paid them a lot of money?
I don't know the exact reasoning, honestly. Like I've been looking into that. Um, it's interesting too because the Jaguar port, until the recent like arcade PC ports for like modern consoles, the Jaguar port was like the most accurate port of the game for a long time.
Yeah, and I think at once I had heard that they did one of the reason another reason that they did the Jaguar version was because I think by that point like the 32X and the Super Nintendo versions came out, and both of those are rough for what they are,
So the Super
and maybe they were
Nintendo, yes, the 32X is based off the Jaguar.
okay. So maybe they saw the Super Nintendo version and that was kind of rough, so they're like, we kind of need to step in and help potentially. I'm not sure, or maybe Atari was like, we'll pay you a lot of money to give us the definitive console version of Doom. Because I guarantee you, Atari was thinking, oh, if we have the definitive console port of Doom, it'll sell the console. And I'm sure it sold well in the Jaguar fan base, but I doubt how many copies it moved, because I think the Jaguar never even crossed 1 million units sold.
No, it didn't. It barely
So,
crossed 500,000 from what I remember.
Jesus.
Um, so fun thing about the licensing agreements for Doom. Um, when they were pricing out how much each version would cost, they actually based it off of like the specs of the console. And when they were toying around with the 3DO port, they actually looked at the 3DO specs and they realized getting a version of Doom working on the 3DO was going to be a very challenging endeavor because the 3DO specs, as much as I love this thing, it's very clear the 3DO wasn't the most powerful console in the world.
Yeah, it felt like it was more designed in the way like a CDI was designed to be just more of like a home entertainment platform than a gaming console.
The 3DO, from what I've realized, had very serviceable specs, but like it kind of had a limit, and people kind of it just kind of you had to work around where its like limit was.
Yeah, because there are ports on here that are actually very good.
And
One
we'll
of
get
which,
into one of them during this story because it's somewhat ties in.
well, yeah, it's like the direct predecessor to Doom. At least I think some people view it that way.
Yeah. So what's fun is because they only want basically the reason why they when they saw that making a report of this game for the 3D was going to be challenging, they only wanted to sell it to someone who they deemed would be serious about it. Oh boy, what a foreshadowing statement. But
Oh boy.
they priced they
Impending doom.
yeah, I see what you did there.
Thank
Um,
you.
basically their way of finding someone serious was they priced it out the rights to do the port at $250,000, which was a lot at the time.
That
um
is a lot of money.
basically they were thinking if someone was going to be crazy enough to spend that kind of money, then surely they would put the effort into it. And then they unfortunately they ran into our so for this story I want to say there is a protagonist and an antagonist for this story. I'm going to call this guy the antagonist of this story, Mr. Randall Letcher Scott. That middle name is kind of fascinating for how foreshadowy it will be later on. Um,
I don't think I recognize that name.
he is known for this game and this game alone. So
Oh boy. That's
yes,
telling.
well, and some other stuff we'll get to later. Um, yeah, so old Randy Scott here. Randy Scott, the best way to summarize this man is he is a businessman. He is very good at selling shit, but has no fucking idea what he's selling.
I mean,
So
if you're a good salesman, you don't really have to know the product that well.
in this case, I think he might needed to. Um,
True. I mean, video games are a different medium than selling, I don't know, shower curtain rings.
yeah,
Though he knew his product.
yes, he did. For anyone who gets that reference, so
I'm not even going to say what it's from.
I'm not either. So Mr. Scott basically he formed a company known as Art Data Interactive, and he had some big plans for Art Data Interactive. They had go
Sorry
on.
to cut you off. Does Art Data Interactive, that sounds like a company that made like WiiWare shovel games.
Un- it does.
You
I
know
think
what I mean?
you're thinking of data design. I think
Yes, they're so closely connected in name.
Art Data did not make it through the 90s. I'll just say that now. Um,
I figured.
so Art before Doom happened, Art Data was mostly known for they acquired the publishing rights to Rise of the Robots for its 3DO port. Already off to a great start. Um,
I haven't played Rise of the Robots.
so Rise of the Robots was a fighting game that was so overhyped as like the greatest thing since Street Fighter, and it came out and it was the most generic, lame fighting game ever made. Like essentially, like
I mean, in an era full of those, that is saying something.
Yeah, and Rise of the Robots. The thing about Rise of the Robots that made it super significant was this thing was hyped to shit. Like people were thinking this was legit going to be the greatest thing ever, and then it came out like a wet fart, and a lot of people were very upset. Um, yeah, so they ported. Well, they didn't even port it. They just published someone else's port for 3DO, and they thought, "Wow, that was easy. Let's do it with Doom." So they bought the rights to Doom, and when they bought the rights to Doom, they got the source code from Doom itself, and they also got the first rights to port Doom 2 if their version of Doom sold well. Spoiler warning, it didn't. Um, so this is where things get a little messy. Essentially, Mr. Scott starts hyping the shit out of this game like it's going to be the greatest thing ever. He's talking about bonus levels, like added weapons, FMV cutscenes, all sorts of added stuff. He's going to make the game better in every way,
Oh
and
God.
and it's going to be the definitive version, better than PC. And at this point, he's telling,
Oh, don't say that.
oh yeah,
Don't say that.
and at this point, he's already hyping up that the game is 96% done. Keep that in mind, and everything is looking great. Meanwhile, in
It's a very specific number, 96%.
yeah, meanwhile in the background, keep in mind, Art Data wasn't a development studio. It was literally just a guy, and they had no developers on hand, and basically, uh, they hadn't done anything yet. They had hired two companies to work on this game. The first one left before they even started any work because they basically took one look at Mr. Randy Scott here and said, no. They saw
Why
right
would
through this.
so why would he do all this hyping up before it even started development? I don't understand that at all. Because at least with say closest comparison, like when people started hyping up Cyberpunk like crazy, like it was being worked on. So we actually got to see some footage of it, before that whole nonsense happened. So, but with this 3D port of Doom, like not a line of code was typed yet. So like why would you do that?
Yes. Mr. Randy Scott here, I don't think he knew anything about video games.
I think
So
that's a fair thing to say.
yeah. So the first studio, we don't know anything about these first two studios that were hired to develop this to handle this port. The first one walked out before beginning work. The second one actually got like to their first programming milestone, and then Randy didn't pay them, so they said, "Fuck you, we're out."
God.
So eventually, 3DO starts like wondering, this is a very big game, and our console isn't doing so hot right now. And you're hyping up it's 96% done, but you have yet to show us anything. And then Randy makes the reveal, oh yeah, we haven't started yet, which 3DO essentially goes, we're already printing the boxes and everything, and with screenshots that you sent us, which apparently were just like photos of Doom from PC with his weapon JPEGs like photoshopped in.
Are those on the back of the
No. So
box that you can have?
these were scrapped.
Oh, I would love to see those screenshots.
So I will say a lot of my information for this video came from Stop Skeletons from Fighting did a whole video discussing this, and
Oh, he has a whole series on Doom ports. So
oh
if y'all are
he did a
interested, go ahead.
I was gonna say he did a full video on this game where
Uh,
this this is how I learned a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, if you guys are interested, yeah, Stop Skeletons for Fighting. He has like a whole series of Doom ports. Like he loves Doom and he likes talking about literally every single version that's ever been released. Like he has detailed like descriptions about all of them. He even has a series on the Doom RPGs that were on the cell
Oh yeah,
phones and all that good stuff. So
yeah,
shout out to him. He's great.
yeah. I want to give him the credit because a lot of my information I got from him, among other
Oh
sources.
yeah. He does very good research.
He does. I actually met him in person at a convention. He was a very nice man.
Oh, he seems lovely.
So going back to the port, essentially 3DO freaked out at this point because they were like, "What the fuck?" Like, and eventually, via previous working relationships, they got in contact with a studio known as Logicware, and Logicware was headed by a programmer named Rebecca Heineman. And Rebecca Heineman is the protagonist of this story, as I'd like to say.
The true hero.
She is the hero, and you'll find out why very shortly. Interesting backstory about Rebecca Heineman. She has a deep history in video games. She's actually one of the co-founders of Interplay.
Nice.
Like she was one of the co-founders of Interplay. She actually, we mentioned it earlier, she handled the 3DO ports of both Wolfenstein 3D and Another World / Out of This World.
Looking at her gamography, she like did the Bard's Tale games. She handled the SNES port of Another World. Did like the PC port of Killing Time, and later on worked on like Medal of Honor Rising Sun, Command and Conquer 3. Like, yeah, she's been around. She's done like a lot of like good stuff.
Yeah, she knows her shit. And like we said, she did the 3DO port of Wolfenstein, which, in a lot of people's opinions, is the best version of Wolfenstein 3D. So it seemed like a smart choice.
Yes, we'll eventually get into that version of Wolfenstein 3D on a later episode, but yeah, that version is fantastic.
Yes, it deserves its own episode, not like this dumpster fire. Um, so essentially, she shows up and she meets Mr. Randy Scott, and she learns very quickly that this guy is he's something else.
He's full of shit.
He's that's one way of putting it. Essentially, she basically sits around for like 2 weeks, and because he didn't supply her with the source code for the game or anything, and then he shows up one day and gives her a disc full of JPEGs of all and FMV sequences of everything that he wants in the game. And he's asking her, "Oh, how's progress going?" And she's like, "I need the source code for the game. I can't make a game without source code." And this is my favorite thing. His response was, "Oh, you don't have a copy of the game? You mean don't you already have a copy of the game?" Which she immediately realized he thinks all you do to port a game is take the PC version and just put it in a 3DO.
Like he literally thought it was like Control C, Control V.
Pretty much. That was all. That was legit. This man knew nothing about video games.
To be fair, there are people even nowadays where it's easier to learn about this stuff that think porting is just doing that.
True, but this man was running a full-on business and claiming that he had 90 has a 96% done gold copy of the game.
And he's acting like one of the many people on Twitter who think they know better than like actual game designers.
Yeah. And fun fact too, when Rebecca showed up to start working on the game, he basically was like, "So I'll pay you when it's done." And her response was, "No, you're gonna pay me my down payment now."
That's what a
Which,
down payment is.
yeah, which he reluctantly did. Like he didn't want to.
Well, good for her.
Yeah.
This reminds me, not to tangent too much, but in the 80s when King Crimson reformed, which you can listen to on Frame by Frame, I mentioned this to where like EG back in the 70s convinced King Crimson that that bands aren't getting paid to tour. They tour for free to promote the record, and then they get money off of album sales because they didn't know any better. And then by the time the 80s came around and they had Adrian Belew and Tony Levin, two Americans who had a better understanding of the music business and had toured a bunch already, when EG tried to pull that shit again, Belew and Levin stepped in and were like, no, 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 no. You fucking pay us to tour. And EG reluctantly paid them to tour ever since. So
Yeah,
gee, I can't see why Fripp was disillusioned with the music business.
Yeah, I know, right? So basically, after Miss Heineman basically discovered this guy is legit full of shit, has no fucking idea, she quit.
Good
And
for
then
her.
and
Fuck
then
that
three
dude.
and then 3DO went, please come back. And he had a good relationship with 3DO. So they convinced her to come back.
From what I think we've figured out, like the devs who worked with 3DO like enjoyed working with them because I think 3DO gave them a lot of like leeway to just kind of do what they want.
Yeah.
And devs like that. Like just where like 3DO is like, "Oh, here's some money, just make what you want." Devs love that shit. So,
So what makes it even better is 3D not only 3DO basically begged her to come back. And then when she did come back, they basically forced Randy Scott to pay her double for the game,
fuck yeah.
which was nice. Um, and then another pretty nice story. She still had no source code. By the way, Randy had the source code for the PC version of the game
Why didn't he just give her the fucking source code?
because he probably had no fucking idea what it was. Let's be real here.
God, fucking goddamn it.
That's my theory. That's also what Derek said in the video.
See the it's just like these people who get these positions of power who don't fucking deserve it, and then when they get there they don't bother to do any research and like actually wise up as to why they got there. It fucking pisses me off
Well, if
so fucking much.
you want to learn how he got the money to buy the Doom license,
What the fuck did he do?
so a lot of this story comes from Rebecca Heineman has told this story multiple times, and it's one of those things where every time it gets told, it kind of changes a bit, but the overall basic like the basic skeleton of the story is always the same. There's just minor things change over time because people forget, people remember.
Yeah.
Um, Apparently, according to her, the money came from he was very big with his church, and they did church fundraising, and that's how he got the money to buy. Yeah,
Oh god.
this is all alleged. Like there's no concrete proof on that. I'm gonna say that's just what's been
Uh,
told.
yeah.
Um, but going back to now, we're back with Rebecca Heineman's back. She's basically like she understands at this point she's not going to get the source code from Randy, and she basically has to. She realizes I'm going to have to do this myself. So she calls it up, and she actually gets on the phone with John Caramack and explains to him the situation. And he actually is a very good dude about this, and he actually sends her a copy of the Jaguar source code,
Yeah.
like
John
free of
Carmack.
charge.
Yeah, John Carmack, a little weird, but from what I've heard, like a good dude and a fucking amazing programmer
Can you
as
imagine
well.
that though? Like thinking about it, like he know as far as Carmack knew at this point, he sold the Doom rights like months ago, and suddenly he's getting a call from someone out of the blue, like, "Hey, I need to do the Doom port. Can I have the source code?"
And he's probably like, what the fuck are they doing with my game?
Yeah,
He's probably
um,
thinking that, but knowing him, like, yeah, he'll help out. He's a
yeah.
nice
Well,
guy.
he probably was like, he probably thought in his head like, "What a fucking idiot!" Like this guy was, and he's like, "All right,
Yeah.
you know what you're doing."
Yeah.
So,
Like I'm sure there's like a solidarity with game developers, you know, like because I'm sure Carmack has been in those kind of situations. So
well, he probably also worked with her during the Wolfenstein port, or at least probably knew of her from that.
yeah, probably. And and I'm sure if she had the leverage, she probably could have been like, "Hey, can we get like Carmack to come in and like help?" But that probably would have been too much money.
Yeah, Mr. Scott wasn't gonna didn't have the money for
No
that.
shot. Yeah, no shot. Even if Carmack didn't necessarily have the name recognition yet, I mean, Doom did give him that, but it would have been way too much money.
Oh yeah, especially with his Ferrari habit.
Oh god. What what
So
what was it with game devs back then and just buying expensive cars? It's just weird to me.
it's just a thing people like. I mean, I have an expensive car because it's
I
fun.
don't. I don't. My car was affordable and it's nice. I'm not a car guy. It's never
That's
really
fair.
been my thing. Like if I play like a racing game, I can oogle at the nice cars, but I never in the back of my head go, God, I want to have one of those. You know, like even if I could afford it, I probably just wouldn't bother. You know, I just want something that's reliable and just does what I want it to do. So, but
This
that's
was
just
my
me.
this was my out of high school goal, and I did it.
Well, how
So
much did that car cost you? Like $3?
Oh, this.
My
Actually,
dream was to buy a model car.
no. Actually, I got this at a supermarket because I saw it when I was walking out. No, the real one was. I don't even remember how much I paid for it. It's been so long. But
It's fine. It's fine. I drive a Chevy Malibu and I'm happy.
so going back to where our story left off, she now has the source code for the Jaguar version, and she's got to, of course, de-Jaguar that, and then rebuild it from the ground up for 3DO. And she basically does the calculations and finds out this is going to take about 6 months to do properly, like just with the amount of work it's going to take. And then she gets the biggest bombshell of this entire story. They needed it. They needed it in 10 weeks. Now, this is not a Randy Scott or 3DO thing. This was actually a stipulation in the purchase of the rights from id, is that they needed it by the Christmas season. The problem is Randy Scott dragged his ass for like God knows how long, and basically they had 10 weeks left.
Oh boy.
So basically, she was like, "Well, fuck." So she didn't quit, but you bet she wanted to at this point.
Oh, for sure. But she
Again,
she was probably far enough along that it's like, fuck it, let's just get it done.
yeah.
You
So
know, like you can't like, and plus she's getting paid a premium to stay there because 3DO vouched for her. So she's probably thinking, even if this sucks shit, let me just deal with it and move on. Like there's a lot of game dev histories where it's like, oh, how is this game bad? And the devs will say, oh, we were just put on a really bad time constraint. We did the best that we could, but we just thought, we'll hammer in, we'll finish it, and then it'll be done and we can move on from it. Because it's better to
yeah.
just stay and finish it than to like back out of it, because that's a bad look if you just leave it.
So basically, going from this point now, she basically starts working on the game, doing the best she can in 10 months, in 10 weeks.
She she probably she probably evoked the Carmack work style, maybe
Most
even more
likely.
than that.
So Rebecca Heinemann's actually kind of fun. Her nickname is Burger Becky, and the reason
Is
she has
she related to Burt Camp?
I don't think so, but that would be funny.
That would be amazing.
The
Let
reason
us know,
why she,
Burger.
yeah, the reason why she was known as Burger Becky is because she actually had a drawer at her workstation that was just full of burgers.
Yeah,
Hey,
I mean, you got when you're hungry, you're hungry.
yeah, you got to get the work done. I
Exactly.
just always thought that was funny. But
I mean, if you're working like 60 hours a week at a desk, you're gonna have a drawer of like snacks or something to eat.
oh yeah, it kind of reminds me of like uh, shit. I lost my train of thought. Anyways, um, so meanwhile she's doing the best she can, and then Randy starts calling again, and he's like, "So when are you going to put in the FMVs?" And she's like, her her response is her response is, "What FMVs?" So during this whole
Oh my
time,
god, this guy reminds me of it was a news story a while ago where it was like the CEO of Kellogg's was like, because like food costs are rising, he's just like, oh, maybe you should just have cereal for breakfast. That's what this fucking sounds like to me.
yeah. So in the background during this whole time, they were actually working on full on like full motion video cutscenes and a storyline for this game, and an apparent love interest for the Doom guy. You can find the images from this online. It is as ridiculous as it sounds.
Doom guy doesn't fuck. He's a virgin. In my
Not in this.
canonic, in my head, Doom guy is a virgin. It makes way too much fucking sense
Yeah.
that the death of his rabbit would cause him to murder Satan.
Yep. Yeah, in this continuity though, Randy had different ideas.
Oh
And
god.
they had a full on costume made for this thing. Actually, the costume is apparently on sale. Like you can buy the remains of the costume online.
No thanks.
But So they didn't even have a proper green screen. It was too short and too close to the actors. So the whole thing was like, I think there was like 5 minutes of footage total. And basically the whole time he would just keep like pestering her, like, when are you going to put it in? And she'd just be like, what the fuck? What am I supposed to do? So she basically
So
just,
who is doing the FMV?
so there was a separate company. I, it's a legitimate company too. Like they actually like do good work. Um,
Could you imagine if it was like digital pictures?
so the the costumes and effects were all handled from the company Global Effects, who apparently still exist to this day, and they
Okay.
actually do fairly good work.
I mean, I don't deny that, but like, the hell, man.
Yeah. So this
Well,
is,
so they were filming the FMVs at the same time.
well,
Heineman was like overtime trying to get this done, and then
yes.
and so it's like they're being worked on simultaneously. And then I guess Global was sending the footage to her, and then she
So
was like, and she's like, I can't fit this in. I got, like, the base game isn't done. Why put that shit in there? You know?
so the Global Effects just provided the basically the costumes and the effects and stuff. I guess all the filming was done at Art Data's office, which is why it was unusable because
Yeah, because
they
they
had no
probably didn't
fucking
know.
idea.
They probably didn't know how to film FMV stuff and like fit it into a game, you know. Like, it was still relatively new technology, but like, if they wanted to be smart about it, they could have got, like, I don't know, digital pictures or somebody who already had experience with doing this and be like, "Hey, why don't you, like, can you help us figure this out?" It just seems to be that this whole project was led by one fucking dude who just thought it'd be really cool to have a great version of Doom on consoles to make some money, but he had no idea how to actually make it work.
That basically sums up Randy Scott. Yes. Um,
Yeah, an
so
idiot. A
y-
fucking idiot.
among other things, but
Oh
y-
god.
yeah. So the whole time this is going on, basically, Rebecca knows like she doesn't have the time or even like the knowledge of how she's gonna like digitize this shit into the game to fit in there. So let alone get everything else working. So she basically just tells him, "Oh, I didn't get it," every time he supposedly sends it to her, and just kind of ignores
Like,
him.
so she probably was getting it, but she was thinking like, I like, the base game isn't done. Like, I can't fit this in there.
She basically she was like, "I don't have time for your shit right now," and just ignored him. Um,
Basically.
this is where we get into the game's most interesting element, in my opinion. So musically, she's working with the Jaguar version. The Jaguar version famously has no music. So she was gonna have
Which I think the Jaguar version doesn't have music in the gameplay because infamously the Jaguar was a nightmare to work on. Like, and the audio I think was purely the Tom and Jerry like dual chip setup, but
the
people
the
really didn't
Jerry
know
the Jerry chip.
the Jerry chip, yeah, but people did not know how to make it work. So most like Jaguar games are just that Motorola CPU that they just kind of threw in there as like a fuck it, right? Most games were working off of that. But because the Atari Jaguar port of Doom is still very, very good. But I think all the processing power it was using to make that game playable, there just wasn't any room for the music. Because there's music in the menus and like in between the levels. But when you're playing the game, yeah, there's none. And I think that was just because they couldn't get the Jerry chip to properly have the sound while they were playing the game.
I
I think.
believe what happened was I believe Carmack actually used the Jerry chip for processing in game, which is basically he used it for other purposes, which is partially why the game runs so well. It's because he was actually optimizing the console's hardware.
That makes more sense. Yeah, because
But
I'm sure the Jerry chip is being used for like the sound effects. The sound
the
effects are there.
the Jerry chip is interesting to me because it's actually arguably on par with the Super Nintendo sound card in a lot of ways, but no games like really used it, so no one really knows.
Yeah, and like Atari did not send like technical guides to any developer. Like, developers would ask, be like, "How the fuck do these things work?" And they're like, "Oh, we didn't write a manual." It's like, why the fuck would you not write? Like, they didn't write a manual to explain how this shit works. And it's like, why wouldn't you not do that?
Yeah. Um, So what's funny though is like the Jaguar we didn't know actually had a pretty decent sound card because like you listen to like Tempest 2000, the music in that game's great.
Oh, slaps.
But yeah, so in a roundabout way with the music now. So basically she had because there was no music programmed into Doom Jaguar, she kind of had to like she realized that like that would have taken so much time to like program her own sound engine and like program the music into the engine for the game. But the 3DO was a disc-based system and could read the music right off the disc. So somehow down the line, she discovered that Mr. Randall, our villain here, is actually a pretty competent musician. Like he actually has a band and can actually. One thing he's good at, like, is apparently he's a decent musician. She sends him basically the Doom soundtrack, like I believe, like digitized versions from like one of the versions of the game, and basically just
Probably
tells
this,
him
probably the Super Nintendo version, because Super Nintendo version does a good job of converting
hmm,
the tunes from PC to Super Nintendo.
it was either that or it was just like the original MIDIs from PC. But
It could have been that.
basically, she sends Randy Scott these copies, and she's basically like, you play them and make me the soundtrack," which was kind of like a killing two birds with one stone kind of thing. One, it took care of the music, which she did not have time for, and it also got him to leave her the fuck alone for a while.
Give him a little pet project to do.
Yeah, basically, it was her way of distracting him for a bit so she could actually get some work done. And the soundtrack is very interesting. It is very loose interpretations of the Doom like music done in this weird kind of like garage band style that is surprisingly really good.
It almost sounds like if it was recorded in like 90s garage band, which probably would have been like Pro Tools 3.0 or something. Because something I found while you were talking is Rebecca has put the entire like 3DO Doom like source code and all the files online. Like if
Mhm.
you go to GitHub, the whole thing's there.
Oh yeah, and
Like
there's actually
she calls it the whole enchilada.
yep.
So you get like all the textures, the sprites, the source code, and the music is in there.
Hmm.
And I downloaded E1M1, the famous Doom track, and listening to it, it's like it's E1M1. Like it's not as punchy. It almost sounds like as you said, like a 90s like grunge like garage band doing like a version of it, you know?
Hmm.
Like I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a garage grungy band in the 90s that they would play local gigs and would do this song. And there'd probably be people saying like, why are they doing an instrumental version of Master of Puppets?
Yeah,
Because that's what it is.
basically.
But yeah, but it's not bad. Like
No,
it has character to it.
it is very interesting. Like I think Rebecca's done like interviews where she's kind of like been like, it's one of the few good things he did on this game. Um
But probably the only thing.
like cuz I love like Kitchen Ace is like my favorite song from the series, and I love the version of Kitchen Ace from this game.
Yeah. Like I'll say UNM1 is solid. So y'all go to GitHub, type in like Doom 3DO, you can find the whole thing and you can go listen to those tunes. So if you're
Unless
curious enough to do it.
unless my ending thoughts ruin the soundtrack for you later, which we'll get to, but
No, Jesus.
yeah. But basically
I
what
don't
she
I don't audience, I don't know. So I'll be as
so
shocked as you.
yeah. Yeah, I learned this today and it kind of ruined a lot of things, but yeah, so basically what she would do is every time he finished a song, he'd send it to her and she'd just kind of throw it into the ROM as she was going along. She'd be like, "Good, done." And there, that's there.
Yeah,
Um
he honestly like E1M1 sounds like a rough take of it. So it could have
yeah.
been him just being like, "Oh, this is a good kind of version. Maybe she'll send it and maybe critique me, And she was probably like, "Oh, it's perfect. Thanks.
Yeah.
Done. Cut it."
Do the
Like
next
Ed
one.
Wood, you do like a rough
Yeah.
take, like cut, perfect.
Do the next one and leave me alone. It's basically. Um so eventually the game gets done and it runs at frames per second, which it may sound bad, but keep in mind what she had to work with And that's actually kind of impressive. The fact that it runs at all.
Exactly. And I think she used a lot of her knowledge from working on Wolfenstein 3D to actually get this, cuz I feel if she didn't have that prior experience, this wouldn't have been able to come out at all,
Yeah.
I
Well,
think.
because when 3DO saw this version and saw it running at like 5 to 8 frames per second, they were kind of like, it's got to be 15 at least. Like that, it's got to be at least 15.
At least
S-
N64.
yeah. So that this is the reason why when you play the game, the screen size is shrunk because that was the only way to get it to run at 15 frames per second.
It has 4 screen sizes, technically 6, but the last 2 I read you have to like look you have to use a cheat
Yes.
device to actually get
So
them. And
fun.
6 is like about as full screen as you can get.
I know it's wonderful to play. Said no one. Um,
Uh,
so fun fact about those two hidden screen sizes. Initially, those weren't going to be in the game. She was going to keep the sizes that ran competently. Um, Basically, Randy was like, "Why isn't it full screen?" And she was like, "Fine. You know what? We can't do this here. I'm going to put in a cheat code that you can do it. And don't worry, when the 3DO M2 comes out, it'll run perfectly on that." Basically, she just told him this nonsense to make him go away.
I have a feeling if the M2 was backwards compatible, it probably would have run this better.
Possibly. We don't really know enough about what the M2's actual power was, but I'd like to assume maybe.
And I think it would have been backwards compatible. Like it would probably wouldn't have been that difficult to do.
Hmm. Yeah, but that's why the game runs is tiny in a square and runs like it's underwater.
It makes the 32X version look like the PC version.
Yeah. So, but I will say, small screen size and sluggish controls aside, the game is perfectly functional. Like there is no glitches at all. Like it is a solid, held together game that is just not optimized for the console it's on.
It's Doom, baby. So, I mean, if you like Doom, well, don't play this version. There's like a million other
No,
versions to play that are better. Like Doom is probably one of the most ported games of all time. Is that a safe bet?
it's one of them. Also,
Yeah.
keep in mind, so she finishes the game, sends it off to 3DO to get gold, to basically get gold, and then she gets the final well, actually, no, before she sends out the final version, Mr. Scott tried to stiff her final payment,
Oh, bastard.
which
Fucking bastard.
at this point I'm surprised, but
I'm sure she wasn't surprised either.
no, well, no, and that's why she didn't send out the final master disc yet. She basically told 3DO, "You ain't getting this disc until I get my money."
Good
Which
for
then
her. Know your
3DO
worth.
basically 3DO told Randy Scott, "You're gonna pay her, or you're gonna be in serious trouble."
Like they're like we've spent too much money getting this fucking thing off the ground. You will give her her payment so we can release this and maybe recoup some of the cost.
Yeah. So begrudgingly, he pays her, and then she sends out the final thing, and she essentially wipes her hands of it and goes off to continue doing what she did best, and basically
Which
left the entire dumpster fire on Mr. Randy Scott.
I don't blame her because that's the thing. It's not her fault. Like
No.
everybody who's like told this story always takes her side. You know, I mean, take the dev side usually, because she tried her best, and you can tell like from the 10 weeks she got, the fact she was able to get a version of the game you can beat is very impressive. You know, like imagine what she had done if she'd gotten 20 weeks.
Yeah, she actually, was hired from the start, got the source code right away, and just kind of
Exactly.
had to deal with Randy's bullshit, but at least had time.
It probably would have been easier. Yeah, because right after this, she did the PC port of Killing Time, which I'm told is actually like pretty good.
It is.
Um,
I do own a
and
copy
she
of that.
and she did the Mac port of Tempest 2000, so it comes back around.
No, she is.
So
You look at everything she did, and it is all really good work. This
yeah,
game is like the one random blemish, and even then, it's not even really a blemish because when you really look at it, she was a superstar.
oh yeah, she was like one of the few like women in the industry at that time that like people knew about and were like, oh, like hell yeah, you know. It was like her and Oh, who is the lady who created King's Quest?
Oh, that was uh
You know who I'm
the
talking about.
Sierra, the co-founder Sierra.
Yeah, her. Fuck, I can't think of her name. I feel so bad.
Her, it,
Hold
she
on, hold on.
it was Ken
Roberta
Williams' wife,
Williams.
Roberta Williams.
Roberta
Yep.
Williams. That's right. Yeah, it was Roberta Williams. Her, Rebecca Heineman, Amy Henning. So I think she was starting to
The
do stuff at this time, though. I think at this time was all she known for was that Michael Jordan game.
possibly. Oh, and then of course
Because Legacy of Kain was 96, which I believe was the same year as this 3DO port. So that's probably when Amy Henning started to get some notoriety at the time.
there's also Centipede. Donna
Oh
Bailey.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I forgot she did Centipede. Yeah,
It was like one of the first games.
hell yeah. There's always been women in the industry.
Oh
You
yeah,
know
they're just getting more recognition now.
exactly, exactly. Because now people actually like kind of. Oh, and plus in the Centipede time, like people didn't really know who made the games. Anyways, it didn't matter.
Well,
You
that was
know,
also a very
like
famous thing about Centipede was that it was a game that attracted women at the arcades.
well, it makes sense
Well, it was designed like it was like
by a woman.
the pastel colors and stuff. They've just like attracted women
Oh
because
yeah, its color palette is very nice.
but then you look at its identical twin Millipede, which has this very drab color scheme. That was a total sausage fest in the corner. So,
Women dig centipedes, not millipedes. Remember that, dudes.
um,
But yeah, that like in that era when like devs didn't get credit for anything. I think it was like was it an adventure? There's like if you find like a specific like secret spot off to the side, the dude put his credit in there because he asked Atari if he could get like put his name in the credits, and they were like no, but he like kind of snuck it in there.
oh, another one
Or
is
like and famously Pitfall. Like I think Pitfall, like I think on the box it says like made by David Crane. So it's like
oh yeah,
who fucking made this game.
another famous lady in gaming, the Oddworld, the she I can't remember her name, but she was like one of the
Oh
big
yeah.
people behind that alongside Lorne Lanning.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, I don't have the nicest things to say about Oddworld.
Well, I mean,
that's
Sherry McKenna.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, I don't know. Like Oddworld's never been a favorite of mine.
No, it's not, but you still got to appreciate them for what they were.
Sure, sure. They're not terrible. I can safely say that.
They're very much you either like them or don't. That's kind of how I've always viewed the Oddworld games.
Yeah, it's a fair thing.
But yeah, so basically, to finish up this story, Mr. Scott was left with this dumpster fire on his lap. He was still trying to push for like the Doom 2 port that was going to come out eventually.
Oh,
Um,
like how much did this version sell at the time?
it actually
Do we have any numbers?
so the numbers are a bit spotty. So keep in mind there was only like 2 million 3DOs really sold out on the market. I think 2 million. It was around 2 million was the total number of 3DOs sold, approximately. It
Yeah,
actually was one of the better selling 3DO games, believe it or not. I mean, Gex was the
I
best
believe
selling.
it.
And he also, in his last ditch effort, because he was like in serious debt now, because he already spent all his money to get the license, the money for the photo shoots and FMV shit, all the money he had to pay Rebecca, plus God knows what else. Also, the musicians in his band most likely weren't paid. Keep that in mind.
He had a band. It sounds like he just did it all himself.
No, he had an actual full-on band. Like I think that was actually his church band.
That's awesome. A church band doing doom music is fucking incredible.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't think any of them were paid.
Oh no, they got paid in prayer.
Probably. They probably had. They probably didn't even know what they were doing.
Yeah, I think church musicians do get paid. I don't know. I was actually way back in the day. I remember I was offered to join a church band in my like early days of drumming, but I did not take up on the offer because I'm not really a religious guy, and I didn't have the confidence yet to think I could do that. So,
Hmm.
little fun
That's
fact about me.
that's understandable. So, Mr. Scott, in his infinite like wisdom, decided to pull an Atari tactic, and he bought
That's
way
not a good thing.
he bought he basically ordered way more copies of the game than there was 3DOs on the market. Yeah,
Oh God. Did Nintendo do that for Breath of the Wild, or was it just it was selling more copies than like there were Switches at that time?
I think it was more the latter. Like, I don't think it was as boneheaded as like
Okay.
this.
Because at least say if like Nintendo did that with like a Zelda, like if they printed a shit ton of them, they're like, we know these are gonna sell, right?
See, Nintendo could get away with it. Like,
Yeah, because they're Nintendo. If Nintendo does it, it's fine. If another company does it, it's fucking awful.
this is literally just some crazy dude who had happened to like luck his way into a high level IP at the time, and
Yeah,
just was
which
just hoping the name alone would sell units.
I mean, to be fair, it probably did because in the mid '90s, Doom was hot shit.
Hmm.
Like it was a great game. People were talking about it. When the talks about like violence in video games were happening with like Night Trap and Mortal Kombat and everything, that was pre Doom. But then when Doom came out, it perfectly slid right into that conversation. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Like at that time, Doom was a very violent graphic video game.
Hmm.
You know, it was, and I could see people being upset about that. You know,
Yes. So essentially, after this game comes out, it is destroyed by critics because it's not good.
no,
There's really no redeeming qualities. And following its release, Art Data did make one more game. Debatable how much they actually made the game and not just fumbled around into it. But they made a game for DOS. It was also supposed to come out on 3DO, but you can guess why it didn't. Um, it was called Chess Wars, a medieval fantasy. Um,
sounds like my kind of game.
so apparently, it's like a ripoff of like Battle Chess or something.
That's what it sounds like. Yeah.
But they used like the same the same studio to do a bunch of full motion video stuff. Um, yeah, it was it actually
Dude,
has oh go
go
on.
ahead.
Well, I
No,
was
go
gonna
ahead,
say
please.
it actually, according to like the few reviews I can find, it actually was pretty well received, but that might be just because it's based off a better game.
But like battle chess with FMV cutscenes sounds like a masterpiece
Yeah,
to me.
not with this not with this guy's cutscenes.
True. And apparently Chess Wars was supposed to come out on the 3DO, but never happened.
You know what's even crazier is that uh, Chess Wars, I believe, was made by Interplay or Battle Chess, I should say.
I believe Battle Chess is, yeah, because it's available on like so much stuff.
Yes, it was. It was
There's a 3DO version of it, so we can talk about it one of these days.
exactly. Actually, that's like the biggest irony is the fact that I believe it was Interplay, a company that Rebecca helped found, by the way, just to tie
Yeah.
that around.
Dude, Battle Chess is on Steam. Hell yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, the the 3DO port of Chess Wars never materialized for obvious reasons.
Yeah. God, I'm way too excited about Battle Chess. Something's wrong with me.
He also apparently they were also going to port Rise of the Robots to Jaguar CD, and my favorite part is underneath the description of Rise of the Robots on their Wikipedia page, it says like the game was going to be ported to Jaguar CD by Art Dad Interactive, but it never happened, and it's unknown why. And I'm just sitting there going, "Oh, I know why. I can tell you why for many reasons." Yeah. So basically, this game goes out with a whimper, and Art Data, despite still claiming they're going to make the Doom 2 port, eventually closes, and Randy decides to leave the video game industry and he starts a music school. for children. So I'm gonna put the big trigger warning here now.
Oh,
Anybody,
oh
anybody,
no.
yeah,
Oh,
anybody,
oh no.
yeah, sensitive topic coming up. Anyone who's not
Oh
comfortable.
God. What's his name? Randy what?
Randy Letcher Scott.
I can't
In
I'm not.
let's just say in 2017 he was arrested for allegedly, because I don't know if it's been confirmed yet or not, um, molesting two of the girls at the school.
God damn it.
Yeah, like
God
made. When I
fuck.
said the man is a piece of shit at the start of the episode, I wasn't kidding.
He pleaded guilty and was sentenced to
Did he?
time in jail awaiting trial. That's according to the Orange County Register. Pleaded guilty to 2 felony counts of child molesting, according to court records. As part of the negotiated plea with prosecutors, 2 felony counts of lewd or lascivious acts with a child younger than 14 were dismissed. He was sentenced to 3 years and 8 months in prison, but Scott
Ugh.
has credit for 2,496 days in custody, which covers the punishment. He was arrested in July 2017, and he was ordered to register as a sex offender for 10 years. Scott admitted that sometime between October 1st and December 25th of 2015, blah, 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 blah. I won't go into the details. Okay. The 2 children have no other connection, blah, blah. Yeah, and this was back in, this article was published in 2023. So this
Yeah,
must have
he
been, yeah, it was probably something that it was sitting in, litigation for a long time.
well, he was arrested in 2017, and then of course the courts are, it's California, so it's backed up as shit there.
Oh, there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then of course COVID happened. You can understand it took a while, but yeah, world class piece of shit.
Oh, fuck.
And he went from being this goofball like dumbass to like, wow, this guy sucked in every way.
I mean, he is a goofball dumbass, but like in like not a good way.
Yeah, but now you can't laugh at him in the funny way. You just got to get disgusted when you think about him.
Yeah. Somebody posted about it in the 3DO like Reddit, and like the top comment is, so my 3DO is a PEDO. Like, ugh.
Yeah. Well, the worst part is all
Ugh.
people are like, well, now I got to burn my copy of this. I'm like, no, he had barely anything to do with it. It's
That's
like,
fine.
you got to respect Rebecca's work.
Exactly.
I
Don't worry about that.
It doesn't kill the soundtrack for me, but it does kind of like leave that kind of ick to it at the same time, though, because that was the one thing that he directly touched. But
Yeah, bad taste in the mouth.
yeah,
Oh, and
it's one
looking
of.
at and go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's one of those things where it's like I understand if that would ruin it for you. I can look past it just and look at it as the art and not ignore the artist, but it's still kind of yeah.
I mean, I'll give Rebecca Heineman all the credit in the world, but
Yeah.
Mr. Scott, no.
No. Let's just say when I first envisioned doing this episode, I thought it was going to be a lot more humorous, and then I discovered today that, and I was like, well, this just changed everything.
Yeah, way to take the fucking room down, you piece of shit.
Yeah.
Though
God
I
damn
will
it,
say, in the subreddit, I saw you posted your long box collection.
yeah,
That's cool,
it looked pretty.
man. Why don't you promote the podcast on here?
I don't know, like
Do
Redditors.
it. Hey, we'd probably get some more traction.
My thing is Redditors are weird, and they get all like self promotion's evil, blah blah blah, and then they get all like the
Well,
bad.
does it have anything in here about self promotion and like the rules?
I'll have to look and see. I don't know, like Redditors.
Let's see here. All posts should relate to the 3DO. No more than 10% of your posts may be no more than 10% of your posts may be self promotion. So if you post it one time, I think you'll be okay.
I'll think about it.
Just do it. See what happens. Hey, if we get flooded with like bad reviews on like Apple Podcasts, bro, we'll just read them on air because those are funny. That like the King Crimson pod has like one bad Apple Podcast review, and we read it on air because it was funny.
Oh, the guy that's like they don't play the music, and it's like that's a legal
yeah. And
dumbass.
I'm like, bro, I'm gonna get copyright claimed to shit.
But yeah. One last note on this. Rebecca Heineman does like conventions and stuff and like interviews about this all the time. And I think she did a presentation on the game once, and I think it was literally called like Doom 3DO: How I Survived Hell. And I'm just like, that
She
is
went through
great.
hell just like Doom Guy.
Her interviews are pretty funny. Like, I was
Yeah,
reading,
she seems like a treasure.
apparently at the Stop Skeletons video on this game, he had actually sent it to her to like proof watch a few times and make edits, and she accidentally leaked it early, and Derek was just thought it was funny, and he was like, "Oh, that's fine."
Yeah, could be worse.
Yeah,
So I guess one question before we move off from Doom: is this the worst port of Doom?
no, I still think the Saturn port is worse.
Okay, I was going to ask about that. I've never played the Saturn version of Doom, so I have no reference. I've played the Game Boy Advance port, which is surprisingly competent.
Yeah, that one's fine.
In fact, I probably don't have it over here. I remember I had ordered a physical of it, and a guy sent me a fake, like a repro that he claimed he didn't know was a repro. I showed him like proof and everything, and he gave me my money back and just let me keep the copy.
Hmm.
So I still have it somewhere because I use it as sort of a frame of reference for a repro kind of thing. And the thing is with repros, they play just fine, but they don't save. They have issues with saving.
Yeah, because they don't have the
So,
same batteries.
well, even that, well, because a lot of them, they don't have like chips for like the ROM. It's just like an epoxy blob.
Yeah,
So it's harder for those to like properly save data. Because yeah, you could either have the battery backup or a lot of later GBA games, they just had like the flash EEPROM, which is much easier to maintain. So
yeah, and I will say the only real reason I put the 3DO version above the Saturn is it's probably the soundtrack, just because it is entertaining. Um, because the Saturn port is just a port of the PlayStation version, but it runs like garbage. Like, it's really
yeah,
bad.
and the PlayStation 1 version runs fine, but there's something about it that's just kind of off.
Oh, that's another fun fact. The PlayStation version was already out at the time the Doom version came out. So it was just
Fuck.
like, how can you fail it any harder?
Oh god, yeah, that's rough.
Um, you did mention earlier that Rebecca had put the game completely, the source code for it completely online.
Yep.
There actually is a team of 3DO enthusiasts that are trying to finish it.
Good for them.
And you know what? If they ever do, I'd like to play it.
I would too. I would too. And yeah, the whole source code, it's on a GitHub. So if you guys know about GitHub, like GitHub's where you can get like fan projects and ROMs, and a lot of really cool pet projects exist on GitHub. So it's a cool site to peruse to find some neat stuff. So
Yeah. Um, and before we move on, for consistency's sake, must play. Okay, stay away. Stay away.
I mean, it's Doom. Doom is a must play game,
It
but
is, but don't play
but
this version.
well, that's the thing. If everybody watching this, I guarantee you have a better way of playing Doom. I mean, hell, the whole joke of can it run Doom, right? So yeah, if you have a modern console or a computer that's not I mean, even if it's a potato, it can probably run Doom.
You can
So
play
like,
Doom on your graphing calculator.
yes, you can play it on your smartwatch, you can play it on your smart fridge.
You can play it on a digital camera from the 2000s.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So yeah, if you haven't played the original Doom and you're listening to this, do yourself a favor and play it. It holds up way better than you think.
Oh yeah,
Which for a first person shooter from 93, that's very impressive. Like it's still a super fun game to play. So it's absolutely a must play game. But this version, don't bother.
yeah. At most, listen to the soundtrack if you can get past the nonsense. But
Well, I think with the soundtrack, those girls that he ended up molesting, they were not alive when this happened. So
true. That, and keep in mind too, like the other people in his band weren't involved. So
yeah, and they probably were of age. So at least nothing was going on. I mean, it's a whole thing.
yeah, it's just it's music at that point, and just listen to the music and keep all that bullshit out of it.
Yeah, he's not making any money off of it. So
No,
I think it's okay. So
especially now.
exactly. So you're good.
Yeah, but the game itself, I'm gonna say the 3DO version, stay away.
Yeah. Doom is a must play game. Love Doom to death.
All right, so The other game where
All
now
right.
we had enough depression. Let's talk about Family Feud.
All right, I'm gonna take the fucking reins here. Okay, so you know Family Feud?
Yep.
Good answer. Good answer. Okay, so Family Feud, the famous game show where you have families and they all sit in the thing and then they're like, oh, yeah, answer this survey. 100 people. You know, like what's the first thing you do when you get home? You know, take a shit. Number one answer. You know, that kind of stuff. So there are quite a few Family Feud video games. Not as many as you'd think. It's not as prolific as say like a Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy. So it feels like every console generation they have to make a new version of that. And
Yes.
hell, I could do a whole podcast talking about all the different versions of Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy, but we're not here. No 3DO versions of those, which is a damn shame. So as far as I know, Family Feud is the only game show game on 3DO that's based on an actual game show that exists. So the Family so this is based on, well, it's kind of its own thing, really, because it was developed by Eurocom, the famous Eurocom that doesn't exist anymore. They were known for a lot of really cool AA stuff, like they did the Jungle Book game on Genesis at the time. They did like portable versions of Earthworm Jim.
Made a couple Spyro. They made a Spyro game.
Spyro. They did the N64 version of World Is Not Enough, which is fantastic.
They made all the good 007 games, basically.
Oh yeah, they did Nightfire. They didn't do Everything or Nothing.
No, I think that
Who
was
did everything. Who the fuck did Everything or Nothing?
I know the name of the studio. I just can't remember.
God, that's like one of my favorite games of all time. Who the fuck did that? EA Redwood, Visceral.
Visceral.
Yeah,
R.I.P.
The Dead Space boys.
The My Sims studio, of course.
But Eurocom. Oh yeah, they did Predator Concrete Jungle. That's a weird game. And the last game they made was 007 Legends for the Wii, which was a terrible game. Anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did this version of Family Feud. They also did the PC and the Genesis version. And I actually play the Genesis version on my Genesis streams. So you can go to twitch.tv/fact94 or youtube.com/fact94 and watch me play through that if you'd like. And yeah, the 3DO version is very much its own thing. And it's not a version of this game I'd recommend. Like, I think Family Feud translated to a video game doesn't work all that well, like in a single player context. You know, like Jeopardy you can do by yourself because it's essentially like trivia. Wheel of Fortune is essentially like Hangman, you know, so you can make it work. Whereas Family Feud, you need that like multiplayer thing. Like you need somebody else on the other side to make it work. Because this version, I have some issue. I only played it on emulator, so I don't know how it runs on original hardware. But the version here does not run very well. It could just be my end. I'm not sure. Because it opens up with the menu, and you select the menu. You select your FMV family. There's like 5 of them. And then there's like, I think I timed it. It was like an hour and a half, or like not an hour and a half, a minute and a half load screen between selecting all the options and actually playing the game. And much like the Super Nintendo and Genesis versions of Family Feud, it opens with the bullseye round, which was something they were doing around this time, like the Ray Combs era, where you would have every like member of the family go up for the bullseye, and it's like, oh, guess the number 1 answer. And if you do, you progressively get more money, and that's what you play for in the fast money round. It didn't last for very long, but it was around enough when these games were being made, so it's kind of stuck with the canon, unfortunately. And it's always great watching people play these versions of Family Feud, and they're like, what the fuck's this bullseye thing? Because nobody knows anymore. But in the Super Nintendo Genesis versions, they allow you to turn it off if you want. 3DO, nope. You have to fucking do it. And
turn it off. How do you do that?
Exactly. Like it's very FMV heavy. If I remember correctly, the host, he's not Ray Combs, he's not Richard Dawson, because Richard Dawson came back for a short stint. And before, I think, who took over for him? I can't remember his name. He's like a fat comedian. Like, fuck, trying to remember his name. Hold on. I don't know my Family Feud lore off the top of my head. You're not gonna edit this out, so I'll just keep talking. Louis Anderson. Louis Anderson. Like he did it right after Ray Combs, I believe, or the second Dawson era. So they get like a weird, like kind of middle ground guy, and it's like the voiceover is done by a guy named Ron Buer. And then the guy that you see, his name is Wal Foster, which he sounds like a bass guitarist or something.
He
That's a
looked
cool last name.
the bit I played of this. He looked like generic TV host man, basically.
He does absolutely, but he's got one of those like Joker jaws. I think.
Like he doesn't have character like our boy Twink over at Twisted.
No, he does not. Like this version of Family Feud is so plain. You know what I mean? Like it's not the worst version. I was gonna say that, but then I remembered, oh, there's the Game Boy Advance version, which is it might as well be a fucking flash game on GBA. Like that's how little effort is in that version.
You know what this version reminded me kind of? It kind of reminded me of like FIFA, where it's like it's just barely better than like what it's based off of, but it's like not really anything special.
Well, at least with FIFA, like the core of the gameplay, like the soccer gameplay, is still solid, so you're
True.
good. Whereas with Family Feud, there's not really any gameplay. It's just trying to guess this stuff. And playing older Family Feud games can be very difficult because they'll ask you questions and you're like, wait a minute, you have to go back to the mindset of like 1993.
Yeah.
So it can be difficult. And even putting this game on the easiest setting possible, the CPU kicks your fucking ass. It is insane how difficult this game is. Like you get no like leeway at all. Like you have to know it. Because there was one time there was a bunch of answers. Like I think it was like 6 or 7, and I got the number 1. I was like, oh, let me pass it. Because that's usually like a strategy in Family Feud. It's like, oh, let me pass it. Make them maybe get a couple, but they're not going to get them all. We can steal it and get all the points. They got every fucking answer.
Yep.
And that's even with like 2 strikes, because if they don't know it, they'll just say pass, you know? So this game is way harder than it needs to be, which makes it very unfun.
Yeah.
You know, even though there is some charm to it, because there's the FMV host, there's the FMV families. They're all like, you know, you have the white, the other white, the the Asian, the black family. Like you have all of those, you know. You got
the
you
90s were a
have,
different time.
well, one of them was called Sanchez, and I'm like, they're just white. Like they don't look Latino, you know, but not in the way where it's like, yeah, I mean, some white people do look Latino, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
And I think it was that family, the dude in the middle, whenever he's clapping, he's just like,
yeah,
like he's on fucking cocaine.
Like
I
guarantee you,
I love that guy.
Eurocom just like got people off the street and were like, we'll pay you some of money to act as a Family Feud coach.
Because when you do the fast money round, at the very end, they do the close-ups. And when I'm looking at them, I'm like, these are either the devs themselves, like friends or family of the devs, or they Tim and Eric'd it and just grabbed a random person off the street. They did not pay actors for this. Like maybe Wal Foster they paid because he maybe was more of an actor, you know, so they wanted that kind of credibility for the host section potentially, but everyone else, it's like, yeah. And on Moby Games, that like the families don't have any credits.
Yeah.
At all. So, I mean, Wal Foster does. His only credit is this game. So maybe
it's like a recurring theme with 3DO games, like the randos to just kind of get pulled into these things, like the Twisted people, the Station Invasion crew, Hellway of the Warrior, all those randos that they brought in.
Yeah, you can tell it was a very Wild West type of era.
It's charming though, in a way.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Also, like this has like a connection to a Game Tech as well, because I think Game Tech published it.
Yes.
Yeah. Because Game Tech was publishing basically all the game show games around this time. So like Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune. If there was a Price is Right game, it was probably them. Like they were publishing a lot of stuff.
They did a few racing games as well. I believe they did Nigel Mansell's Racing on Super Nintendo.
Yeah. They did Brutal, Paws of Fury. They published that. Classic Concentration. So they don't exist anymore, I believe.
No.
I believe they were.
Game Tech is one of those publishers that reminds me a lot of they remind me a lot of like Age Tech, where like they were around for a while and then they just kind of disappeared one day.
Yeah, yeah, and if you play a certain subset of video games, like say I do, then you're gonna see their name everywhere. Because yeah, they also did like Press Your Luck, Hollywood Squares, Double Dare, all that stuff.
Double Dare.
Oh, they published Quarantine on 3DO.
Huh.
Oh shit! So we'll get to we'll get to talk about them again in the future. And yeah, this is, I mean, it's a version of Family Feud. I wouldn't recommend it. It's still
Yeah.
that era where they have the old like 70s like designs and everything. I mean, hell,
When
if you
I
watch Family Feud from this era, like the Ray Combs era of Family Feud is good. I like him as a host. He has a lot of like youthful energy and he's like cracking jokes and everything. You wouldn't think he blew his brains out.
Hmm.
No fucking trigger warning there. He died. He killed himself. But that's a whole other topic. Um, so yeah. Yeah, but I mean it's I would
Most
just play I would play the Super Nintendo version of Family Feud if you want to play a version of it. Because
yeah,
the Genesis version, the sound is terrible. It's the same game, but they do not use that Genesis sound chip well at all. But on Super Nintendo, it's perfectly fine.
hmm,
There was that Family Feud Decades on the Wii, which is probably more playable because it has like, and it gives you more like modern questions and modern
yeah.
answers. But I think that's the most like recent version of Family Feud that's ever released. I think
I
like there's
think
not that many versions
so.
of it. Yeah.
No, it's definitely the well, like you said, it's kind of one of the harder ones to really do as a game. Um, I did see
Oh,
a lot of
there is a version of Family Feud for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch. It came out in November of 2020, which is probably why nobody noticed.
probably, yeah.
Let
There
me
was
look.
other there was
I'm gonna
other
look.
things going on at the time.
Yeah, I'm gonna look this up on the Xbox store real quick.
I did notice going over reviews for the 3DO version. A lot of people said the most fun way to play it was with other people, probably to turn the computer off.
Yeah, yeah, because the computer, I swear, it fucking cheats. It feels super unfair.
Yeah, and the general consensus I see online is most people are like, it's Family Feud on 3DO. What else is
Yeah,
there to say?
it's nothing special, but it's like at least with the versions of like Family Feud on say Genesis or Super Nintendo, there's something more to say. I think it has like better production value, weirdly enough, or say all the different versions of Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. Like all those like various ports of those games, I think they're all kind of unique,
Hmm.
you know, and there's something to say. Even on like say the Genesis when they would do like 3 versions of Jeopardy, like the regular version, the deluxe version, the sports version, the kids version, the I don't know, the toilet version, I don't know. Like they all have something unique about them that makes them stand out. Whereas with Family Feud, I don't know how the hell you do that. But yeah, I found it on here. It's published by Ubisoft.
Okay, that's
It You can get it with Ubisoft Plus, which I will never do because paying the same price as Game Pass just for Ubisoft games is no thank you, especially when their games become dirt cheap pretty quickly. Like I bought a copy of Assassin's Creed Mirage the other day, brand new for $30,
yeah.
like still shrink wrapped and everything. So
And then they take them away from you when they're done.
And then for 30
Mm.
bucks, and for 30 bucks, you could buy this version of Family Feud, which on Xbox, out of 108 ratings, has just under 2.5 stars. Oh boy.
Oh
Which
boy.
which apparently people are saying there's no online play or the online play is broken. And someone just asked for where is Steve Harvey because they just use a generic white guy host.
Oh, he's in
You
the
know,
Wii version. He's in the Wii version. I know that.
is he?
Does he host any other shows?
I mean, yeah, but no other like game shows. He has like his own like daytime talk show, which I mean, Steve Harvey's also. If we're gonna talk about shit human beings, Steve Harvey's kind of shitty too. Not for the same reasons as the other guy, but you know, I've heard some of this man's opinions on things, and it rubbed me the wrong way, like
Oh,
real bad.
it's one of
Um,
those. Gotcha.
Basically, he's one of those guys where he's like, men and women can't be friends.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
Yeah, which explains probably why he's had like 3 wives, and each one he cheated on the next one with.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, he does Family Feud. I mean, he does some other stuff, but that's kind of what he's become known for these days. He started doing it in, oh shit, 2010. He's been doing it that long. God damn.
There must have been another Family Feud game. It's not the Wii version, but because I remember
Well,
seeing this horrifying model of him, and I was like, "Oh my!"
I mean, there is a version of Family Feud on the Wii.
I just looked it up. It's not. It wasn't what I was thinking of. There is definitely a version of the game with him in it because I remember seeing this really horrifying model of him, and I was like, "Oh my!" They did not do him nice.
Hold on. Could have been like the PC version or something.
Maybe.
Because there's slightly off topic. There's a version of was it Hell's Kitchen? Like there's a Hell's Kitchen game on PC, and it has a likeness of Gordon Ramsay that looks like his forehead is melting onto his eyes, and it looks absolutely terrifying. Look, guys, look that up. Hell's Kitchen PC game. Like he's right on the cover, and it's terrifying.
I'll have to look it up at another time, or either that,
Yeah,
or it's a fever dream or something.
I'm trying to think. I can't find a video game version of him in it. I can't.
I might be thinking of something else.
It's possible because my guess is probably Steve Harvey owns the likeness to himself, so
I'd
they would have to
assume.
license that as well. Because yeah, like none of the Family Feuds that have been released feature the likenesses of their hosts.
Oh, you know
Like
what? I might be thinking of Jeopardy, and it was a really bad version of the Jeopardy host. Never mind.
Trebek, yeah, because
Yeah,
Trebek's in just about all of them, but Trebek is usually pretty cool with that, or at least he was pretty cool with that.
yeah.
There's actually a really fascinating version of Jeopardy on the CDI that has like extensive FMV of Trebek, and he reads out like every clue.
Oh,
Like
that's cool.
the production value on the CDI version of Jeopardy is fascinating, and it makes it a hidden gem for that console. Like if you're curious about different versions of video game versions of Jeopardy, CDI is like a highlight on that console for sure. Um, but yeah, it could just be a case of like Steve Harvey doesn't want to use his likeness. Because I know the Super Nintendo and Genesis versions of Family Feud, like the host they have, it looks like Ray Combs.
Yeah.
It looks very similar. I don't think they use his name, but it's like close enough to where you're like, that's probably Ray Combs. If you know, if you don't know, you just be like, oh, it's just a host, you know? Because yeah, like Richard Karn was a host at one point. I remember that. Like Al Borland, Home Improvement. He hosted Family Feud for a couple of years.
Oh yeah. Yep. It was the PS3 version of Jeopardy with that horrifying thing.
Oh yeah, I have the 360 version. Yeah,
Okay. That's what I was thinking of.
Wheel of Fortune does the same thing with Vanna and Pat. It's a rare
Does-
version. It's a rare version of Wheel of Fortune that has Pat Sajak. Most of them, just about all of them, have Vanna, but like only a handful have Pat, which I don't know why. And then you have these like modern versions of Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune, like the Ubisoft ones that like that version of Wheel of Fortune just has 2 generic hosts in it, and then Jeopardy doesn't even have a host. It's just like there's not even a set. It's just you look at the board and answer the questions and everything. It's a very weird production value choice. My guess is cheap as possible.
That sounds like Ubisoft.
Yeah. Oh, and I totally forgot John O'Hurley hosted Family Feud for a little bit, for a short time. If you know who John O'Hurley is.
No, can't say I do.
Honestly, that awkward silence, I thought you froze for a second.
No, I was thinking about it for a minute. I was just like, nope, no thought.
I'm trying to think of what he's like. I guess the most thing he's known. He was in Seinfeld a little bit. He was the original King Neptune in SpongeBob.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and yeah, he hosted Family Feud for a little bit, and then when Steve Harvey joined in, it's like, yeah, that's the guy.
That just reminds me of like America's Funniest Home Videos, how it was Bob Saget for like years, and then there was those 2 hosts for like that period that nobody likes, and then they brought in Tom Bergeron, and he was like the guy that everyone
Yeah,
loved,
I like Tom. He also hosted Hollywood Squares for a little bit as well.
and Dancing with the Stars.
Yeah, he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, they got rid of
at
him.
least that's what I know. I don't know if he's done anything
Yeah.
shitty that I don't know about.
I don't think so. He's kind of like retired now, from what it sounds like.
Yeah. Like, I mean, Richard Dawson was great, though watching the Richard Dawson era Family Feud now, I could see people cringing a little bit. It was just a different era because like Dawson like literally kisses every lady on the lips. It's kind of weird,
Yeah, that was a
but
weird time.
different era. And I know Dawson is just like he was just like he wasn't as far as I know, nothing came out about him being like creepy or anything. So as far as I
Yeah.
know it. And yeah, Ray Combs seemed like a real nice guy, and I mean people like Louis Anderson. So
Hmm.
yeah.
So must play. Okay, stay away. I'm assuming just play a different version of Family Feud.
Yeah, I mean if you're curious enough, go for it, but I would say stay away.
Yeah.
It's not as interesting as you would hope it would be. You know, like it would have been really cool if they had gotten, say, FMV of either the show itself or like filmed new FMV of like say Ray Combs like going through the thing. Like that would have been cool. I would have liked that because remember when we did Madden and Madden had a lot of FMV of John himself, and then
Oh
they
yeah.
like have that one crowd shot, and then they got the ref to do like all the signals. Like that stuff helps make that game interesting. But Family Feud, this just doesn't have anything, you know. I can definitively say this isn't Eurocom's best work.
No, this is like the most like they certainly made it kind of games.
They got to check,
Yeah, like
and that's what matters.
it's not bad in the inherent way where you like Doom 3DO. It's just kind of like it exists. Like
Yeah,
it's Family Feud on 3DO. That's the best way to describe it.
yeah, it's fine for what it is. But unless you are like dying to know, it's like it's really just not worth any of your time, you
Yeah,
know.
if you're gonna play a game show game on 3DO, you're better off playing Twisted. At least Twisted has
Yeah.
charm.
Oh yeah, yeah. Twisted is really fucking cool, and it's a shame we didn't get a version of Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy for this because it would have been really cool. There's a Sega CD version of Wheel of Fortune that I kind of hate, but we could. But that's for another discussion.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, so that was an interesting experiment doing two games in one episode. It's really funny how like the first half was very depressing. Well, it was insanity, and then just like ended on such a wet fart, basically. Um, and
Thank you.
then,
I appreciate how much you care.
well, the I'm talking mostly about Doom.
Fair enough.
Then we went to Jeopardy. I mean, I don't even have my right game show, Family Feud, and I was just kind of like, hey, it's fine. It was like,
Yeah, you could do a lot worse.
yeah.
I'm sure this isn't the worst game Eurocom's ever made.
No, well, I mean that 007 game's pretty bad.
Oh, Legends. Oof.
Yeah,
I mean, they did the GoldenEye remake, which I think is okay.
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. They did the Quantum of Solace. Oh, they did the PS2 version of Quantum of Solace. It was actually done, but the real game was done by Treyarch, which is that's a fascinating game. Um, yeah, like I'm just looking through their list of games, and it's like yeah, like a lot of licensed stuff, and like like franchises that have kind of fallen off a bit, and they're like, hey, do you want to do it? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? And then in the middle, yeah, they have 007 Nightfire, which is one of the best games, one of the best 007 games ever made.
Yeah,
Oh, they did Crash Bash.
yay.
Hell yeah, Crash Bash.
They
And
also
then
did Spyro: A Hero's Tale. I want to say.
which is that's a good game. I like that Spyro game.
Well, yeah, it's very good, especially because considering it followed the fucking dumpster fire Revenge of the Dragonfly.
Oh
Um,
god, yeah. And then
anything would have looked good compared to that.
exactly, yeah. And then oh yeah, they didn't do the Legend series. Who did those?
Chrome
Was it
Studio. Well,
oh the fucking
the first two. The third one
yeah.
was some other company.
Oh yeah, Chrome. They did the Tasmanian Tiger games.
And Jimmy Neutron, Jet Fusion. Hey,
And and a game that I have way too much fondness for the video game adaptation of that King Arthur movie in the mid 2000s, starring Clive Owen as King Arthur. Um, oh fuck, what's her name as Guinevere? The girl who looks like Natalie Portman but isn't Natalie Portman.
I couldn't tell you.
Fuck. The fuck's her name? God damn it. She's like the British Natalie Portman. God damn it. Hold on. Let me. Keira Knightley. Yeah,
Oh,
Keira
her.
Knightley. Yes.
Oh,
Uh,
what was she in? Wasn't she
she's
Cat?
she's she's in Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I knew that. She's also wasn't she Catwoman in like Dark Knight Rises?
No, that was Anne Hathaway.
And I mixed these all these ones up.
Yeah, yeah,
Too
yeah.
many actors.
Keira Knightley. She's done a lot of stuff, but not a lot of stuff I know.
Yeah, I just know the names, but I couldn't tell you what they were in.
Yeah, but yeah, but yeah. That King Arthur game for like the PS2, Game Boy, or GameCube. It's very much a. It reminds me a lot of the Lord of the Rings games, like Two Towers, Return of the King. Um, not as good, obviously, but I have a soft spot for it. Its Metacritic's like a high 50s, and I'm like that's about right. But I like that game.
I love the irony of like it shows where my priorities are. I can remember all of these like awesome female game devs, but I can't remember fucking actresses to save my life.
It just shows our priorities. And yeah,
Yep.
Chrome Studio still exists.
They do.
They're not dead.
They made Tie 4 and they just recently did the two Tie remasters.
And oh, there's a Tie the Tasmanian 4?
It's like a 2D side scroller. It's not bad, but it's pretty unremarkable.
I haven't played any of them.
2 is really good.
I've never played the Tie series. 1 and 2 were on Xbox, so I would be willing to give them a try.
You can play 1. 1 isn't bad. 2 is an excellent game though.
Okay. They're both like what, 3D collectathon games?
Yeah.
Okay. I probably like them. I remember like back in the day at the rental store, I saw them all the time. They were always there. And I thought they were interesting, but I never rented them. Instead, I rented iNinja. Fucking love iNinja, still to this day.
The third one's kind of meh, but the first two, particularly the second one, is really good.
I might go through them. Maybe during my my Witcher 3 phase, I may play some games in the middle of it. Oh nice. Yeah, and apparently they were a support studio on Hogwarts Legacy.
Good for them.
Yeah, J.K. Rowling's back in the news.
Oh, great.
We won't go there.
At least Avalanche made a good game. That's all I'll say.
I mean, it looks like if you care about like the Hogwarts stuff and you wanted to play that game, you were probably happy with it. So I'm happy for you.
I don't care much about Harry Potter in general, but my buddy Matt tells me that him and his wife are very big into it, and they said it's a good game. So
I mean, people praised it. The people who played it really liked it. So though I imagine the Switch version is bad.
He was telling me it's not. It's serviceable.
Fair enough.
Like he said, his wife enjoyed it fine. So
that's what matters.
I do love the fact though that they put a.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I love the fact that they put a trans character right at the start, in the game, right near the beginning, just as a middle finger to J.K. Rowling.
They knew.
Yeah.
So fun fact: iNinja was done by Argonaut Games.
One of their final games, I believe.
Yeah, it's near the end. But they also they did the Croc games. They helped out on the first Star Fox, and they had worked on Star Fox 2 as well. Mm-hmm. So despite them being defunct by the time Star Fox 2 came out, they still got a credit for it.
Yep. Well, one of the main guys who worked on that was Dylan Cuthbert, and he later formed Q Games.
Mm-hmm.
And Q Games famously worked on Star Fox Command, which is a great game with a shit story, and the Star Fox 64 remake for 3DS.
There you go. Do you know what the last game Argonaut Studios made before they went under?
Wasn't it the Bionicle game?
No.
Okay, so they did one after that.
Oh, they did a couple. Bionicle was they did a few more after that. Their last game was the game based on the Catwoman movie.
Oh, the Catwoman game. That game's actually not bad. It's not good, but it's got some interesting gameplay to it.
It's a tad better than the movie, which isn't saying much.
Like I remember playing it back in the day and being like, this is garbage. And then I got it for like $1 in a bargain bin and it was like, fuck it, why not? And I played it. I'm like, this isn't as bad as I remembered.
Yeah. They did the PS1 versions of like the Philosopher's Stone and Chamber of Secrets Harry Potter games. We'll bring it back around to that. They did Alien Resurrection.
Mhm.
So they pioneered first person shooters on console. Hell yeah. Um, Buck Bumble, which I love that name.
Oh,
Um,
you want to torture Alex? Just play the fucking music from that game.
I've heard the music from that game.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and they did Stunt Race FX. Cool game.
Yep. No, they're Argonaut made some good stuff. The fun fact: Croc was originally planned to be a Yoshi platformer until Nintendo basically said no.
It makes way too much sense because I've tried playing it and I despise it.
Oh no, it's definitely a very. You play Croc and you're like, "Yep, this is one of the first 3D platformers." All right.
Yeah, it feels very pre Mario 64, even
It's
though it
better. It's better than Bubsy 3D, but that's not saying a lot.
no, that's saying nothing.
It controls better. That's really about it.
Yeah, but listeners at home, I highly recommend the game I Ninja.
Hmm.
It is really fun, cool. You play as this little ninja, and it's kind of like a Mario 64 type game where you drop in these hub worlds and you have these like levels that you do, and you have to do them like I think some of them you have to do more than once because they have different missions, and you have to get the scrolls to be able to like get to the next area. You have your sword and your variety of shuriken, and there are like other things you can do. Like there's I think the first boss is like a mech fight, which plays like Teleroboxer on Virtual Boy, which is kind of cool. And there's like, oh, you get a turret, defend this like beach from from boats and shit. Like it's a really fucking cool game. I've always really liked. I've never beaten iNinja, but I've always really enjoyed it. And
I Ninja.
apparently the cutscenes for it were directed by Don Bluth. I just learned
Oh,
that now.
I love Don Blue.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I Ninja was always like one of those like PS2 era games that I'd always like kind of like lump together with like Doctor Muto, Vex,
Yeah.
Scalar, Whiplash, just all those games that were like they're really good games, but they just kind of all got like mixed together there.
I totally get it. It's yeah, there was a lot of these like double A games in this era, right? That I think we took for granted back then because now I think we want more of those kind of games nowadays.
I always
So,
say like Voodoo Vince, like that is one of my favorite platformers like ever, and that was completely overlooked when it came out.
oh yeah. Yeah, there was a lot of like hidden gems from this era. And I Ninja is one. I think all of us who grew up in this era have like that one double A. Like me, it's I Ninja, you'd be Voodoo Vince, where it's like nobody played this game except me, and I fucking loved it.
Hmm.
And I Ninja is kind of an annoying character, but I like it,
Hmm.
because he gets into like a furious rage and kills his master. And so the ghost of his master is like helping him everywhere, and he'll just be like,
Yeah,
"Hey, just try not to die again." He just says a lot of weird shit, but yeah, I love that game. It oozes charm.
it's like that or like Ape Escape 3, like to me is another one from that era that I just like I'll defend till like the end.
Yeah, yeah. And then around that time, I think I tried playing Vex once. I don't recommend Vex.
Nah, Vex is good old guy game guy.
Acclaim. Yeah, well, that was like a claim being like, shit, we have to make a new IP. This, and it was very half-assed.
Get the Turok studio. They can do it.
They could do a character platformer.
Well, I mean, technically they started doing that because they did Arrow the Acrobat.
Yeah, that game's not great either.
Well,
It's not. It's really
it was
not.
it was designed by the same guy that designed the Guy game, so let's let's remember that. Who also
Uh,
founded Retro Studios.
uh, it all comes back around. So
Yeah. But yeah, so this was an interesting one. We had I think next week we said we're gonna do Biofury.
yeah, let's do Biofury.
Yeah, let's talk about the newest 3DO game. I think at the time there might have been a newer one since then,
Well,
but
probably the newest that's been officially released.
yes. And
Yeah.
so far I'm really enjoying it, so I'm looking forward to covering that one.
Yeah, if anyone out there has a way to get in contact with the dev of this guy, the dev of this game, I think his name's Retro Love Letter Online. If there's a way to get in contact with him, please let us know, because it would also be nice to like send him this later so he can watch it.
Yeah. But yeah, once again, guys, thanks for joining us on the 3DO Experience. 3DO Experience can be found on all the major podcasting platforms. Also available on YouTube with video versions every time. Hi guys. And you can find all of our links at linktree/the Barbecue Games. And you can join the GNC Podcast Network Discord server to find all things GNC, Geek Addicts, the 3D Experience, talk gaming, anime, or just general nonsense. And remember, tonight, Thrak is streaming Sega Genesis games, so be sure to check that out 7 a.m. or 7 p.m.
Yep. And I earlier in the week I did a special stream where I just played Beyond Oasis since I have some free time. The VOD for that is up on YouTube. So on my YouTube at Thrak94, you can watch it and it's right there. So watch that one as well, because Beyond Oasis is a fantastic game.
And I will include all of the links down below. And with that, everybody, we will see you all later.
Bye-bye.